From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts.
You know, we've done a lot of incredible things, and I remind myself of that there are more people who benefit from what we've done every day, and I just can't let the haters win.
Welcome to Community Catalysts. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman. Local leadership shows up in many forms, on town and city councils and school boards, county commissions, and in all sorts of community organizations. This podcast shares the hard-earned, real-world lessons of those who step up to serve. In a democracy, the opportunity to lead belongs to everyone. To step up with courage, integrity, and connection is to strengthen the very fabric of our communities. We're here to support and empower all who care to serve as community catalysts. My guest today is Rebecca StClair, Vice Mayor and Commissioner at Large for Muskegon, Michigan. Muskegon is a working-class lakeshore city with deep industrial roots and a growing sense of transformation. Rebecca has led through some especially difficult political moments, situations that tested her resolve, her values, and even her personal safety. I've been looking forward to asking her how she navigated those challenges and how she stays grounded and what she's learned about leadership under pressure. Rebecca StClair, welcome to Community Catalysts.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Rebecca, let's just start with Muskegon. I asked you right before we hit the record button here where it is, and you held up your hand for you like people in Michigan do. For those who haven't been there, just tell us about your community geographically, and then tell us something about the spirit of your community as well.
It's on the West Coast. We call it the best coast of Michigan. We are right on the Lake Michigan shoreline. And we also have a large body of water called Muskegon Lake, which is a deep water port. So Muskegon has very deep roots in the maritime world. We have had 200 years of shipping history, and our community was rooted in our community on the water, but we have not ever been a tourist destination. It is, as you mentioned in your intro, it is a very post-industrial city. So we have a long history.
You said it never was a tourist destination. So
No.
Was that intentional, or did just tourism bypass you and go to other places?
It was definitely not an intentional thing. The years of industry did a lot of damage to our lake. Our local Muskegon Lake has been on the list of the most polluted lakes in the country. It has had an enormous amount of effort put into re-establishing it as a clean and safe place. We are actually on the verge, hopefully this summer, of being delisted from the Great Lakes areas of concern, which is something that we have spent 40 years and $100 million as a community trying to clean up the lake so that it is someplace where people can find recreation and community.
I had no idea about Muskegon like this. So what you're saying is that all that industrial use really took an environmental toll on the community, and that you live with that. The community lives with that to this day.
Yes. Muskegon is one of those communities that's a lot better than the sum of its parts. The people in the community are incredible. There is a long history of, grit and determination and being willing to do the hard things. Muskegon has never been a community that things have come easy to. And with that kind of challenge and struggle, you see communities bond together, and people love to hate on Muskegon, but only if you're from here. And if you are not from here, then people are quick to defend who we are and how hard we've worked, and the $100 million and hours of work that has gone into cleaning up the lake. We weren't responsible for that, but the work that has gone into cleaning it up has been a local effort. That story plays out again and again in this community. People come together and they roll up their sleeves and they do very hard things.
I want to ask about how you came to step up to leadership in your own right. I understand that you had a sort of a grassroots campaign and you unseated an incumbent. Tell us about that.
Sure. So I have never, before I ran, had ambitions to be an elected official. I have several friends who have been elected to different offices or who have ran them successfully. And I have always been a supporter and want to knock doors and make phone calls and donate money. But I never wanted to run. I had a good friend who was a commissioner at large, and he reached out to me and asked me if I would consider running for the at-large seat that he was going to be vacating to run for mayor. And my initial response was, no, absolutely not. I have zero interest in that. And people are wild, and I didn't really want to be a part of that. I'm a social worker for a living in my day job, and I see very regularly how difficult people can be to each other.
What was it that made this person reach out to you and think that you would be appropriate or even interested in the first place?
So he knew me. I had helped with his initial campaign 8 years before, and he knew that I was a community advocate. I have a master's degree in social work, but I also have a master's degree in public administration. That puts me in a little bit of a unique perspective. I understand how government works more than many people do, but I also understand what people need. And he saw that as a combination that would be a good fit for the role.
When you say that you have a unique understanding of what people need, is this just about empathy, or is this actually in the unique situation of Muskegon that you actually have some deeper understanding of what people need to be healthy and to be economically sustainable and all of that in this community specifically?
I think it's a both and. I think what applies to Muskegon applies to most everyone everywhere. As I said, I'm a social worker, which means that I have studied, I don't know if you're familiar with Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of need.
Sure, all the way up to self-actualization at the top.
Absolutely. So people's basic needs come after their need for safety. So if you are not safe and you don't have your basic needs met, you're not going to be a super productive and helpful member of society. And part of Muskegon's history is there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of challenges that come with having a lower socioeconomic status. We've had significant issues with housing. We've had to work really hard to draw and maintain good employment that people can take care of their families. And those things are all every bit as important as making sure that our fledgling tourism industry can continue to grow. You talked about having been to Traverse City, and I don't know what sort of experience you had there, but Traverse City is a very tourist-driven destination, and they have an enormous problem with housing because it is a tourist destination. And with short-term rentals, it has become very hard for the people who do the work to find a place to live.
I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have similar kinds of issues. The people who work in hospitality can't live near the places where they would work.
And they're not going to drive in for a minimum wage job, not when they can probably find a similar job closer to them for less gas money, or if they don't have a car.
This person really realized that what you had was not just good intentions, but you had some really substantive knowledge of how people live in your community, those residents who were there and what it takes for them to be viable. So fast forward us just a little bit. So you decided to
Sure.
run. What was the grassroots campaign?
So part of the reason why I decided to run was that, I initially told my friend no, and then thought about it and told him I would take the weekend to go home and think about it. My husband was out of town, and I I took some time to really sit down and think about the pros and the cons. And the more I thought about it, the more it was clear that there were a lot of reasons why I should run. And honestly, the only reason why I could think of that I shouldn't run was because I was afraid.
Hmm.
And I try very hard to not avoid things only because I am afraid of them. So that meant that I needed to do it. I was not the I was not the expected candidate, and there was another person who ran. And between the two of us, we unseated the incumbent, and then there was also my friend's vacant seat. So we had a really contentious election in which more money was spent on that election than has happened in the history of the city. There was a mayoral race and then two at-large seats. And there was a lot of resistance to changing anything. There was a solid part of the community that had a lot of power that did not want anything to change because how things were going was working very well for them. And we actually encountered an outside entity that incorporated with dark money, and they supported the other candidates and did mailings on their behalf, and they did pretty unheard of smear campaign against my friend who ran for mayor and myself. You don't normally see that kind of issue in what is really, honestly, fairly small town politics.
Rebecca, let me go back. When you said that the only negative that you had on your list was fear, was this the fear that you were thinking about, that there was going to be some organized interest that was going to spend money and go negative in this, or was fear something else entirely?
That never crossed my mind that I would be pursued like that. What I was afraid of was putting myself out there. I'm an introvert. The idea of knocking on doors and asking people to vote for me was terrifying. I couldn't think of anything that I would rather do less than that.
Hmm.
As I was going through all of the reasons why I should or should not do this, it was very much a place of personal discomfort internally that that's terrifying. I don't want to do scary things.
Rebecca, early in your term, I understand you faced a land sale decision that brought national attention and brought some pretty intense local protest as well. As we were preparing for today, I learned that this was very much a defining moment for you. So I'd like to give you a little bit of space here and just ask you, if you would, to describe the situation in your own words. What happened, and just kind of take us into it.
Sure. So actually, it was my second commission meeting. I was elected in 2021 in November. So my first commission meeting was the beginning of January 2022. Our second commission meeting, there was a item on the agenda to sell a parcel of land that was within our industrial park to an entity that does medical testing for pharmaceutical companies. That meeting was the beginning of about 6 months of meetings that we had tremendous protest. There were pickets outside every day. I received emails from all over the world regarding the plan to sell this property.
You may need to explain when you say medical testing for pharmaceuticals, what does that really mean?
They test pharmaceuticals, and by pharmaceuticals, I want to differentiate. It's not beauty supplies. It's not shampoo. It's medication that they do animal testing. Um, the laboratory has been in our community for about 30 years. They're not a new entity to the city, but for some reason, this particular sale pushed a lot of people's buttons.
It attracted attention. So let's be clear. I didn't realize this is a company that was already existing in Muskegon. They were going to grow. They were going to expand. They were going to take over some additional facility. They needed the city to sell that property to them. And of course, as I don't know what you feel about animal testing, so I won't make presumptions. But even if one, is uncomfortable or doesn't like the idea of animal testing, it is still a legal function to do. And like you said, it's a company that was already doing it in the city for some long period of time.
Right. Not only is it a legal function, it is a required function. One of the things that came out of this is I learned more about medical testing than I ever anticipated I would. I actually took a tour of the laboratory where they were housed before they moved and did many hours of research into the ethics of the situation and the necessity. And it is not possible for any pharmaceuticals in the United States to make it into a human without going through animal testing. As of this point, there is no other way for that. This was immediately following the COVID epidemic where millions of lives had been saved because of the COVID vaccine, which was able to become available because of animal testing. I heard endless stories from people about life-saving treatments that their loved ones had received because of animal testing. And, it is not a comfortable issue, and it's not going to be a comfortable issue. I am an animal lover, and I also love people, and I don't have the power to change the requirements of the FDA. And, my mother passed away of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And if there is anything that could have been done for her to save her life, to make her years that she was dying more comfortable, I would have done it. And I think that many, many people have someone that they have lost or that they didn't lose that comes back to pharmaceuticals that were available because of animal testing or operations or procedures. There's no transplants that have been done without animal testing.
Did you have a moment where you had to kind of put your personal values and sensibilities and stack them against your civic responsibilities and say, even if I think it's necessary medically, but I find it distasteful personally, that your civic responsibilities pointed you in a different direction?
Absolutely. I think that was something that the whole commission struggled with. Almost all of us were animal lovers. One of the commissioners fosters animals all the time, and to balance what is the best for the most people is an ongoing challenge. And this issue really highlighted that. While that was happening, some of the arguments that were made against me, somebody brought a picture of my dog into the commission meeting and was holding it up at the podium like, you're responsible for horror. And I had to make the decision that I made because it was what was best for the most. Our community, the wider area, but it's not easy. I did not think that I would have an issue that would immediately lose me friends, that, would sever relationships of people who had worked very hard to help get me elected. Immediately were furious with me. And there are some relationships that still have not healed because of what happened the minute I got elected.
Rebecca, what are the emotions that you're experiencing as you make the decision to run for office again and gird yourself to go out and, I imagine, knock on doors once again and ask people for their votes? What are the emotions that are driving you at this moment?
I actually just passed it off to somebody else because I felt like I didn't need it anymore. But for about 5 years, I used to wear a bracelet every day that said, "Beautiful girl, you can do hard things." And I'm really stubborn. And I grew up in poverty and I worked very, very hard to be successful in any sort of way. I had a pretty significant undiagnosed learning disability in school and had to work very hard to be able to graduate and then to go on and get 2 higher education degrees. I don't know how to quit. So for me, even when it's terrifying and exhausting, there is enough good that comes from this. And I can see the positive echoes of the work that I'm doing enough that, I'm going to keep doing it at least one more term. We'll see what happens after that. And we've done a lot of incredible things. And I remind myself of that there are more people who benefit from what we've done every day. And I just can't let the haters win.
This may be an oversimplification, but I think what I just heard you say was that you care more than you fear.
That is a very succinct way of putting it.
What do you think the takeaway should be for people who are in leadership positions in other communities, or who maybe are just, thinking about whether they might want to take on those responsibilities themselves? What would you tell them based on the experience you've had?
I have had conversations with people as they were thinking about if they wanted to run. And I try to be honest. I don't want to lie to people about what the realities are. I think it's really important that people make informed decisions, which means telling them about the hard parts and the scary parts along with the really great things. And I don't know that I'll ever recruit anyone to run for office personally. Just given my experience, that feels like a move that I wouldn't want to do. That I'm not regretful of, the fact that I was asked. I'm not regretful. I would have never thought of doing this on my own. And I'm not sorry that I did. But I also know that that set something in motion for me that I don't know if I want to do that for someone else. So I will generally talk to people about running for office. And if they have questions, I'm always happy to sit down and talk to them. I've had a lot of conversations with people over the last 2 years about what is it like to be a commissioner? What is it like to be a candidate? Because those aren't necessarily the same thing. And, I try to support them in making an informed decision.
Just a minute or two ago, you said that you weren't going to let the haters win.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it seems to me that the person who recognized your level of caring and competence was giving a wonderful gift to the city by helping to identify a successor who would bring those qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a way of letting the haters win that you say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to recruit the next person because I don't want to be responsible for setting them up to receive, when what you could be doing is saying, I'm going to look for the people who care. I want those people to step up, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure they understand what it takes to succeed in that environment.
The world is a really different place than it was 4 years ago. I think that that is a factor. It's a lot less safe to be an elected now. The thing that happened in Minnesota last month, those weren't things that were happening.
Right, you're talking about the
5 years ago.
assassination of the Speaker of the House and the attack on another legislator and their families.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That changes the field. It's not just people hurting my feelings potentially or hurting my family's feelings. People are getting killed over politics. And that's something that is heavy. I wouldn't try to talk anybody out of it. And I won't say that I will never change my mind. I will continue to encourage people to run. I'm just going to be honest with them.
Rebecca, I have one last question I want to ask you about. I'd like you to put your vision cap on and tell me what you hope and expect Muskegon, Michigan will look like, 10 years from now, as a result of all the caring and effort and all the work that's being done right now and all the pain that one has to endure to make things happen. What do you hope and expect the city will look like a decade from now? What's the payoff from all of this work?
So the things that we are doing now within the next 5 years will set us up to have a booming economy with a variety of employment types, a range of housing at all price points that will allow people to stay in the community and not get priced out. Also, a safe community where people, no matter what they look like, no matter who they love or how they love, will feel safe and welcome. A beautiful community that will have public spaces that are accessible for people to get to the waterfront and to enjoy all of the natural beauty that we have been blessed with living right on Lake Michigan, and that it will be clean and safe and comfortable. And that is where we are headed. I think when next time you come back to Michigan for the Michigan Municipal League Conference, which is happening in Michigan next year, it's been 4 years since it was here. And I think that the people that come will see. Yeah. I think that the people that come will see all of the progress that we've made already, and it will be noticeable. Because we are on the right track, and we don't really know how to quit as a community. I fit right in with that.
What I love about what you just said was you started describing the physical attributes of a community and maybe even the economic attributes of the community. But what you're really saying is in 10 years, there should be a greater sense of togetherness and a greater sense of community, and that perhaps the challenges that you're experiencing now are something that can be weathered with strong leadership, with effective communication, with engagement of people, and that people are actually going to be very happy and excited by the community they're creating together.
I think so. I think that's where we're headed.
Rebecca StClair, I am so grateful to you for opening up to this conversation. I know that you have been and are experiencing some really difficult things, and my heart goes out to you, and I wish you strength and perseverance, and I'm just very grateful that you wanted to share all that with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again to my guest, Rebecca StClair, Vice Mayor and Commissioner at Large for the City of Muskegon, Michigan. Rebecca reminds us that leadership isn't always about having the right answers. It is about having the strength to stay rooted in your values when the pressure is high and the spotlight is harsh. Even in the toughest moments, staying true to what matters most can become the foundation for trust, reliance, and renewal. This podcast is all about real-world leadership, and we'd love to include your voice in that conversation. So here's a question for you. What have you learned about how you stay strong when facing opposition? What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's feeling the pressure but wants to lead with integrity? Call me at 602-688-2724 and leave a message. Your insight might be featured in a future episode. And what have you experienced in your own leadership journey that others could learn from? Use the podcast guest link in the show notes to introduce yourself. Your story might be exactly what another leader needs to hear. If you found this conversation valuable, please follow the show and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps other local leaders find and learn about these conversations. Community Catalysts is edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.